This is Life Rewired, the brain injury podcast for survivors by survivors. And now your host, Rob and Ashley. Hi, I'm Rob, and this is Life Rewired. If you're new here, make sure you're hitting the subscribe button and share this with someone that needs to hear this message. We are growing every day, and we're reaching other people that are lost and lonely and don't have anyone as a resource. So please share that with people. Today, I am so happy to announce that we have another caregiver, Sue Dexter. Hello, Sue.
Hi.
And I just kind of bumped into you by accident on Facebook the other day. I was watching, and you came through on one of the Facebook Lives, and I watched, and I said, "Boy, I have got to get her on this program." So thank you so much for agreeing to come on and talk with somebody you have no idea who he is.
Thank you for the invite, and I'll have you on for your book.
Oh, thank you. I'll just tell you a really quick story, and then we'll go right into yours. I'll make it brief. I didn't have any idea how powerful this book was going to be. I wanted it to be able to be for some people that were brain injured, but also for people that were non-brain injured that are just trying to heal through traumas of their lives. So I have a friend that he took us to dinner afterwards, and he hands me an envelope of money, and he goes, "I want you to, there's enough money in here for 5 books. I want you to send this to 5 people that want the book but can't afford the book." So I had 1 book left, and right before you and I spoke, I'd already got off camera with the other interview I was doing, and he told me he was saving his disability money, that he was going to purchase the book. And I said, "No, you're not. I'm sending you the book." So I got his address, and I cannot wait to send it to him because he was saving up for it. And I was like, no, you're getting a book for free.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what it's all about. But anyway, enough about me. I want to hear your story. I know that you are the caregiver of your husband.
Mm-hmm.
So if you would just share with our audience what happened.
My experience with TBI actually started when I was younger with my sister's head injury. It was a bad accident in Holyoke, Massachusetts. 11 kids were involved. The woman had an emergency behind the wheel of the car. Instead of hitting the brake, she hit the gas. Hitting all 11 kids. 3 died instantly. 1 died a few days later. And my sister was the severest to survive. She had to relearn everything. Severe head injury. She's now has two daughters, beautiful daughters, 7 grandkids. She's prospered. She was my inspiration to get into working with special needs students. I got my degree in, it'll come to me, associate's degree, developmental disability technology. I ended up working with in an ABA program for autistic children. And ABA is set up for working with autistic children, but it also works with TBI.
Oh, good.
I didn't know. And little did I know that in this little thing that I would be using my experience and my education on my husband. So this leads me into my husband's accident, which happened actually the day before our 15th anniversary. He was a working foreman for the forestry department where we live. And he was doing his maintenance on the truck. He was on a step ladder, and he didn't realize that there was something wrong with the ladder.
Yeah.
And the safety pin popped out, causing the ladder to collapse. He was 60 feet in the air, hit the back of his head, which also, when you get that force, it also slaps up against the front. They put him in, they had to jump in with intubation quickly because where his injury was, controlled his breathing. So they intubated him quicker than normal.
Yeah.
To sedate him so that his brain could heal. There was a point where they were talking about going in and putting like a shunt or something to get the blood out of his head. But his brain already started absorbing. It was moment to moment, and it changes your life.
Yes.
Even from, the caregiver too, because we're in a we're thrown in a situation where we have to make decisions for our loved one. And I was very numb emotionally because I had my kids at the time, 10 and 12 years old.
Oh,
We were in
wow.
school when it happened. And I worked down the street. And it gives me chills when I talk about it because I was actually working with one of my students in the playground down the street from where the accident happened. And I saw fire trucks and an ambulance heading to the yard where he worked. And I said to my student, who is nonverbal, it looks like somebody's in dire straits. Little did I know it was my husband. I was so nervous that what popped in my head is I'm not ready to be a widow.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, I can't think that way. I got kids. And then I went into mom mode. Somebody's got to be there for the kids. So I had to
Yeah.
that while I was waiting. When they brought me in the crying room, because they have little rooms that they put people if they're going to get bad news or they got to talk about.
Oh, yeah.
And I volunteered at a hospital. I was a candy striper, so I know what the crying room was for. And my heart sank. And I'm like, I can't panic. I got to keep my head straight. And the trauma doctor was great. He was really great. He pulled up a chair in front of me, held my hand, and he described to me that he had a TBI. Mind you, I have a degree. I studied anatomy physiology. I never heard this terminology. And I'm like, what is a TBI? That was the first time I was introduced to the terminology. And TBI was used starting back in 2008. And I'm like, okay, it's a new terminology. When he told me the extent of his head injury and how that he had to jump in because I think he had a couple bleeds, they had
Mm.
to jump in sooner than later. And he said to me, and I use this every time I do a live, I explain a TBI if somebody's new watching, and he put it to me, it's like when your computer crashes and it reboots, some stuff comes back, software comes back 100%,
Yeah.
not so much, and some that don't. So it made me understand better. And so in the process of going through all this, he lost a month of his life because he was 2 weeks in the hospital.
Mm.
He was medically induced to
Hmm.
coma kind of thing
Yeah.
for 4 to 5 days. And then they would take him off and see if he could breathe on. They wouldn't take the machines off unless they knew he was safe too. And then he went to a rehab for 2 more weeks. And like I explained to other people, that there's a process of mourning,
Hmm.
the living mourning kind of thing,
Oh,
because you're
yeah.
mourning the loss of the person that was, and you have to let go of what was in order to accept what is. And this whole thing came full circle. So whatever I've learned in that circle has helped me deal with him and help him.
So you already had an insight because you've lived with your sister before it even got to this point.
Yeah. And that's why I
Yeah.
said it's full circle because
Hmm.
it can be difficult. It can be, I'm not gonna lie, I have my moments where I'm overwhelmed.
Hmm.
Because it does affect the whole family, affected my kids in different ways. My son's like me. He works through it and he chooses certain things to escape. I escape with music. He escapes by game playing. So if I apologize if you hear yelling in the background because he's losing. um, my daughter was diagnosed with chronic PTSD, which is a real
Mm.
thing. It can be overwhelming, but then there are the moments that are happy, and you got to take the good with the bad.
Hmm. I've often said the caregivers are the ones who are the unsung heroes, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do our podcast so bad is because it's not talked about, and if you don't live it, you don't know it.
No,
And what people forget is yes, it affected the person that got the injury, but it really affects the person that's taking care of them because you're thinking for two people. it's taxing on both of you.
It's exhausting. I admit
Yeah,
that. I tell my kids, if you see me on my iPad and I have earbuds in, it's because mom wants to forget and escape for a few minutes and
yeah,
recharge. If it's bad enough,
yeah,
I'll just leave and go in my room and lock the door for a few minutes, just to breathe.
yeah. You have to. I know someone that I've heard that they work away from the house because we're living in a society now. A lot of people work from home, but this person, he knows that he's coming home to take care of his wife every day, and he just pulls over about a block from his home, and he turns the car off, turns the music off, and he uses about 6 to 8 minutes to sit there and just unwind and
Hmm.
just decompress, recharge, because he knows he's going home to take care of not just himself, two people.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's very important to give yourself care too.
And I call it me time.
Yeah, and you need it. You absolutely need it.
Because if you don't recharge you, what good are you to anybody else?
Hmm.
And it's and then you got to deal with triggers and
Oh
caregiver
yeah.
triggers too.
Hmm.
One big trigger was I see his bucket truck in town, and it
Oh
triggers me
yeah.
because I remember how it used to be. Because he used to stop home for lunch and when the kids were small and check on the kids and stuff like that.
Mm.
And I used to just be happy to see the bucket truck, but it if you don't recharge yourself.
Have you heard of the spoon theory?
No.
Okay, it was. I think if I'm telling you correctly, we did an episode about this, but brain injury, forget all these
Hmm.
details. But basically, it's the theory of this lady. I think she had Alzheimer's. I'm probably getting it wrong. So my co-host isn't here to correct me. She knows all about the spoon theory. But basically, everyone starts with the same amount of spoons each day. Okay, so what might doing the dishes might be one spoon. And say if you start with 1, 2 spoons for the whole day, now you're down to one. Vacuuming, that could be 1 to 2 spoons. So once you're out of spoons, you're out of energy. So, somebody that's neurotypical, they might be able to use one spoon for a half a day's projects. Whereas, someone with a brain injury does something and heck, they're out of spoons before they even get to lunchtime.
Hmm. Hmm.
So it's very important to spin your spoons wisely too.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, exactly. And know when you need to walk away
Hmm.
and take a deep breath. And it's okay. I keep telling people it's okay if you have a meltdown. You're human.
Yeah.
I think my biggest meltdown was 4 months after he came home. We had a PCP, PCA, PA. Excuse me, I can't even say a PA. I'm thinking my other job because I work in a mental health field, so I'm thinking all this stuff. But PA, he came in. He was fantastic. So Ronnie, if you're out there, kudos to you. He knew how to redirect my husband. They wanted him to come in every day because they were afraid that he would become violent.
Mm,
Um,
yes.
and the way I do that is not everybody's going to be aggressive.
Right.
And that's a stigma of TBI.
Hmm.
Every TBI is different. They know that. But he had his long term memory. And my theory is if you still have your long term memory, you still have your personality, you still have everything that you were taught, you still have all the basic things of who you are. You're not going
Right.
to, you're a nice person, you're not going to turn aggressive. It's not going to change you that dramatically. Some
Right.
people it does, but it depends on
Hmm.
what's been hit.
Exactly.
So I'm like, he's not going to be aggressive. And besides, I'm in a field and I told him what I do. I said, I am safety care trained. I will take him out if I have to. I know how
And
to,
he knows that, I'm sure.
but my back won't let me do it. And they all looked at me and just laughed. That's all they could do was laugh.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's true. I can do it. And he knows it.
That's great.
So, but I did do ABA on him. I had to. Um, One thing I want to stress importantly is observe your person that suffers a TBI. Watch them, watch what they do. Um, Also, in the back of your mind, remember that this is the TBI. So if they get verbal with you, they don't mean it. They can't
Hmm.
help it. It comes out. He has no filters, and it can be embarrassing.
Guilty.
So, I mean, through the hospital stage was worse because everything came flying out that he was thinking. I wish I had a sign that said, "Sorry, no filters."
You need a shirt, no filter.
Yeah, sorry, he has no filters. What it is what it is. And
Yeah,
he's a comedian now, so he became this reserved person to a comedian.
that's funny.
So, in fact, I even had a funnier moment. I had a white raincoat, and I was visiting my husband, and my back was towards the door, and an intern came to me, and he goes, "What should I do about so and so in room so?" And I turned around, and I'm like, "I'm not a doctor." I never wore that jacket again because anyone would think I was a doctor.
That's hilarious.
My husband thought I was the doctor.
That's so funny. Not to get off script, but I had a phase in my life where I wore nothing but red shirts and khaki colored pants. Every time I went to Target, someone asked me where something was.
Oh,
Every time. So I got rid of the khaki pants. I still
yeah.
sometimes get asked for something in this, but I just help them. I know. Oh,
It's,
that's so funny.
I mean, and if you have a moment, a bad moment, those are the things you need to lean on. It's those
Yeah.
funny things, those happy times,
Hmm.
because that's what gets you out of the dark place.
Right.
I mean,
You said something that I want to touch on. I don't know if you realize you said it or not, but basically, when you're being a caregiver, my wife recognizes when I need rest, and she'll tell it to me. She'll say, "Your words aren't making sense." They
mhm,
make perfect sense to me, but I don't realize that things coming out of my mouth are not words. So she sees the little warning signs, and she'll say, "Go take a rest," and I'll go take a nap for an hour.
mhm, mhm. My husband's good about. I'm lucky because he can do things on his own. But we're running into a little difficulty because he developed hand tremors
Mm.
in his right hand. It's really bad. He can't even sign his name.
Oh no.
So we're in the process of we changed his seizure medication, which was very hairy because he did have a seizure after he hit his head, which is not unheard of.
Yeah.
Um, but I took anatomy physiology, and a nurse told me it's a double-edged sword. You know a lot, so you understand a lot, but at the same time, you don't need to know all that, but it's going to worry you because you know that stuff.
Right.
My husband fell a couple of years ago. I woke up on a Saturday hearing him calling me, and he had back problems, so I figured, oh, it's his back. I was not prepared to find him on the floor in my hallway.
Mm.
And I'm like, okay, what am I dealing with? I rude awakening. I went right into tech mode. I usually, I'll explain that in a minute. That's another thing. I got a story within a story. I'm sorry, but
Don't go ahead. You're fine.
I didn't like what I was seeing. The caregiver knows the person better than
Hmm.
anybody. He was looking at me, but he wasn't looking at me. He wasn't making any sense. He couldn't move. He knew enough to call me, which was great.
Yeah.
Heard him fall, and it was just before he called me. I don't know. I don't know the time frame of when he started to call me and the fall. I don't know if he lost consciousness. I wasn't there. So we had him transported to the hospital. They took a CT scan or an MRI. I can't remember which. But anyway, they compared it to his injury from 10 years ago and found that the injury on this side, on his left side, had expanded and they don't know why. My thought process, stroke, maybe a seizure, who knows? So I'm thinking in my tech brain that this could be causing the hand tremors.
Could be.
So they decided they tried putting him on medication to see if it would work. It didn't work.
Hmm.
They turned around and they are switching because he was on Depakote, and Depakote is known to cause tremors in some people. But he's been on it for 10 years, so why would he suddenly develop tremors?
Yeah, that wouldn't make
But
sense
we'll
to
go,
me, but
it's a root process of rooting out what's the problem.
right.
Um, so the biggest fear was, would he have a breakthrough seizure
Mm.
coming off of? So we had to do it a safe way. And I took time off from work so I could watch him to make sure that wouldn't happen. And we were blessed that didn't happen. His tremors have not gotten better. It's going in his left hand, and his right leg is slightly tremoring. He went to there is a neural specialist. If anybody does have tremors, they do have neural tremor specialists. And he said if they continue, we would probably have to look into something else. And, you know, the statistics are out there that people that have suffered TBI are high risk for stroke, seizures, Alzheimer's, dementia, and Parkinson's. Tucked away in my little brain is the fear. And a caregiver never stops worrying. And I keep telling
No.
him that. And he makes the comment, well, I didn't tell my wife because I said, you're too late, dear. When are you going to know that I haven't stopped worrying about you for 10 years? you know? Um,
We do that. We do keep things from our spouses because we don't want them to worry.
but we're going to worry no matter what. If you don't tell us, we're still going to worry.
True. True,
It's
true.
stop us from worrying. We're going to worry.
Yeah.
And we become these observant little creatures that even though you don't tell us, we already know.
Yeah.
But we need confirmation from you. And if we're the advocate, like I said to him, I'm your advocate. I need to know these things. So I can
Yeah.
advocate for you.
It's hard. It is
It,
really hard.
I mean, I'm sure it's hard for you to reach out for help if you need help.
It is. It's very hard. And plus, I don't know the statistics between men and women with TBIs, but men already don't reach out with a normal brain.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I can only imagine with having a TBI, probably even harder. It is
Yeah.
for me.
Mm-hmm. And it's for a caregiver, it's also even hard. For,
Yeah. And it's
and
hard for you all to watch it as well because that's somebody you love.
it the sense of hopelessness or helplessness, not hopelessness. It's mostly helplessness.
Yeah.
You do reach a point where you're wondering about hope. You
Mm,
wonder about God. You wonder about a lot of things. A lot of emotions really do when you're going through the process. It did not hit me that it was all happening until they intubate him. Then it became real. And then my thought went, what if he doesn't remember me? What if he doesn't remember the kids? What if? And I finally said, girl, knock off the what ifs because you don't know. He could recover from this, is what was playing in my head because that's what the could question mark. You know, you got a window of the 24-hour to whatever they give
yeah.
on whether you can tell. And I was so ecstatic when he graduated from being critical to guarded because I was like, yeah, we're going.
Baby steps up that ladder.
Yeah. And when I say to, when my father had cancer, I learned to take everything week by week, and then it went to day by day.
Yeah.
With TBI, it's moment by moment because it can change within a
And
moment.
yeah, and TBIs have a way of, I was just talking about this today to somebody. The symptoms that you have today, you can have new symptoms years down the road. Didn't realize that at first. Took me
Hmm.
a long time to figure that out.
Look at my husband.
Yeah.
He didn't have tremors before, and his memory has gotten worse